This is Father Vogel. We continue our series on Ralph Martin's short little book, Priest as Prophet, considering the prophetic office of the priest. And we're talking about some 7 different prophetic virtues. We've already talked about fear of the Lord, as well as zeal for God, as well as for the salvation of souls. And the 4th prophetic virtue is righteous anger at those who would cause little ones, in other words, Jesus' disciples or believers, to be scandalized. So let's consider this virtue. So the priest who is a prophet should have the virtue of righteous anger at those who would cause little ones to be scandalized. So, what does this mean? Well, righteous anger, which means a good kind of anger. So, Jesus expressed a righteous anger when he expelled the money changers from the temple. Remember, I mentioned that last time. Zeal for my Father's house will consume me. And so zeal is going to lead us to want to protect the followers of Jesus and not let them be led astray. And that's really scandal. Sometimes people will look at scandal and they'll see as being, something is scandalous if others recognize it as something that has been done that is wrong. But actually, scandal refers to something where somebody who is, in a sense, an example, perhaps say like a leader of the faith or someone, and they do something that is actually sinful, but it seems as though it's perfectly all right. So they're leading others to think that what is actually bad is really good. So that is what scandal is. So even if someone doesn't see an action as being scandalous, it can still be scandalous because it might be leading somebody into sin because they believe that what is actually evil is actually good and okay to do. So that's what scandal is. So, righteous anger at those who would cause little ones to be scandalized. So we have to have righteous anger at those who would lead little ones into sin. I mean, Jesus was very serious about this. He said to those who would lead little ones to sin, he said it'd be better if a great millstone were tied around one's neck and be cast into the sea rather than to allow one of my little ones to fall into sin. Because he cares so much about the salvation of every single soul that if someone is part of leading somebody else into sin for the detriment of their eternal salvation, there is going to be a deep emotion rise up within the Lord, and should be with us too. We should have great energy to want to prevent that from happening to the little ones. Now, this kind of righteous anger, I think, in response to some of the scandalous things that are being proposed as being good nowadays in our culture, there are some individuals, priests for example, who will put forth a great deal of anger in the way they preach about things, and that's caused some backlash from people. That's caused even from their bishops, and even though we ought to have this kind of anger at evil, how are we going to express this? I think that's the important thing, at least within my mind. Because I don't see, I certainly have a lot of anger towards certain issues that are being taught as good. But I don't necessarily have it come forth in an overburdening way through homilies. I don't know. I don't think that's that I should be. I try to express the beauty of the truths of the faith and so draw people in rather than, yelling at somebody. I don't see that as really gathering people to the Lord as easily as, as maybe It might feel nice to get some of those emotions out and yell once in a while, but it doesn't necessarily help anything. Same way whenever you're in an argument, right? And you have anger and emotions are running high, to yell at somebody it doesn't usually work. So I try to use more beautiful, sweeter words in that. But anyway, there's two kind of areas that kind of relate to this. Martin puts it kind of under areas of intellectual formation, things that we need to know that is true, that even with some certain people within the church are not always taught as being true. And so he says that first, the first thing is the presumption that virtually everyone will be saved. Basically, it's saying that it's pretty much impossible to sin, or even if we do sin, God is a merciful God, and He's not really serious, and He wouldn't allow anybody to suffer hell. Not a good God. There's plenty of people who will make that claim. The problem is when they say that, well, my God wouldn't do that. Well, you've suddenly made God in your own image, because it's very clear from Scripture that Jesus saw hell as being a real possibility, that the actions that we do here on earth have eternal consequences. And in fact, as Martin says in here, he says, I would say that it is Jesus' profound vision of what is at stake for every human being, heaven or hell, that was a primary motivator, not only of his prophetic and evangelistic zeal, but of the whole plan of salvation. Jesus understood what was at stake. I mean, the core of the whole gospel that I've been preaching in my homilies these last several weeks is that, God originally made us for Himself, to be with Him forever. But then, through the envy of the devil, sin and death came into the world, and through sin, we can eternally lose that life. And so, in order to rectify, to heal us, to bring us back, Jesus Christ came even to offer His life on the cross unto death. And if those two options, heaven or hell, if hell isn't a real possibility, if sin isn't something that's real and serious, then there's no need for a Savior. Why even bother? There was no need for God to come. And so it's essential that this is real. And so it does bring a kind of internal anger within me when I hear people saying that, it's pretty much the same. It doesn't really matter. Everybody pretty much goes to heaven. No, this has eternal consequences. We must point out what can lead others to damnation. And this connects with zeal, because he says this should lead us to, try to rectify the wrong very quickly. Right? Just as parents, if you see your child doing something that's going to harm them, their physical body, you're not going to wait around until it actually happens. If you can, you want to stop it so that they don't go through that pain. So the same way, don't want anybody to experience the pain of eternal suffering. So he says this is part of what should motivate us to share the good news of the gospel, and to be able to try to, and one of the works of mercy is to admonish sinners, to try to bring them back. Because he says the eternal destinies of people who have never heard the gospel are in grave jeopardy, but also the eternal destinies of Catholics who may have been baptized, and maybe some self-identify with Catholics, but are not living the life of the disciples. Their lives too are in jeopardy. In jeopardy if they're not living out the faith. We're held to a higher standard once we've been baptized. So why should we bother to evangelize? Why share the faith? Because the eternal destinies, heaven or hell, of millions of our fellow Catholics, not to mention millions of countless others, are in the balance. It's a matter of life and death. So if we truly love somebody, then we're going to be dedicated to trying to help them achieve salvation, receive it from the Lord. The second area where people can be scandalized by thinking that something is bad is actually good, and so living in a way that leads to eternal damnation, Martin says, is the presumption that the church needs to accommodate people where they are in the realm of sexuality. So, our world is obsessed with things having to do with sex today. It's pretty obvious. We have entire months that have to do with identities and proclivities and celebrating all of that. It's really an obsession of our world today. And some people, even within the church, refuse to uphold what the church teaches, what has come passed down through the scriptures from all ages. That the church, well, to get with the modern times, Catholic Church, you need to change all of these things that you teach. And that arises a great righteous anger within me as well, because leading so many people astray for their eternal salvation, you're going to end up making them miserable here on earth and miserable for all eternity as well. And I don't want to really get too much into all of the specifics of sexual morality and the way the church teaches, because I've been covering a lot of those specific issues in my homily series. Very important to talk about, but I'll leave it to that point. But, we need to take Jesus, the apostles, the church, the history of the church at their word that sinning sexually is indeed a serious matter. And that it can lead to eternal damnation. There's a quote he gives in the book from St. Jacinta, one of the children, saw Our Lady of Fatima, and she said that on her deathbed, it's reported that Mary had told her that more souls go to hell because of sins of impurity than any other. Of course, it doesn't mean that sin is a worse sin than others. In fact, of the deadly sins, lust is not the deadliest, but pride is the deadliest of the 7 deadly sins. But lust or impurities are probably, unfortunately, very, very common. So we want to put forth the good news of the gospel that Jesus Christ came to redeem even our bodies. That the kind of temptations that arise in that area are not insurmountable with God's grace. I guess that's part of the prophetic message of being a priest, is that we have to be a witness to that in celibacy. But one point that always comes to my mind that I want to make is that those who are specifically, I would say, leaders or theologians or representatives within the Catholic Church herself that insist that the church has to change her teaching. But my question, my wonder is, do you actually believe that the gospel is true? Do you believe that it has the power to transform lives? I mean, to accommodate people and say, well, people can't live up to this standard, so we should just allow them to continue to live in this state. No, Jesus came to transform us, to redeem us. His is a power that's beyond all others. We don't change his teachings just because we can't live up to them. At certain moments, you're right, we can't. Only with Jesus' help can we. Trying to remember there's a quote from G.K. Chesterton. I'll probably get it wrong here, but he basically said something to the effect of, it's not as if the gospel has been tried and found wanting, but rather it has been found difficult and left untried. It is difficult to live if we try to do it by ourselves. But with God's grace, it is possible. And there's a beauty and a freedom. Do we actually believe that the gospel is good news? Do we believe the church's teachings in the area of marriage and sexuality are good news? We must believe that. And that's an area where we should have a kind of righteous anger against those who basically, by their desire to accommodate the world, are saying the gospel is without power. Jesus Christ can't actually transform our lives. And That should arouse strong reactions. So anyway, I've gone on too long already in this virtue. The virtue, just to remind us again, is righteous anger at those who would cause little ones to be scandalized. To have great courage and power to defend what Jesus' true teachings are, so that souls may achieve eternal salvation. God bless.